My name is Van Karnanantham, a founder and CEO of Fidus Mortgages. I'm here with a special guest, Roy Ratnavel. Thank you for being here, Roy.
Well, thanks for having me.
Roy, it's been a pleasure having sit down with you and having a chat. I'm a big fan of you.
Oh,
I
thank you.
can resonate a lot. My life relate to yours. I came when I was 16. We just spoke about your father and my father. Like they have the same values as well. So tell us a little bit about your journey to Canada.
Okay. Um, First off, thanks for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Where do I begin? So I was born in Sri Lanka, in the capital city of Colombo. But when I was very young, maybe 2 or 3 years old, my father decided to move us back to our ancestral hometown, which is Point Pedro, the furthest point, northern point in Sri Lanka.
Northern Sri Lanka.
And then after the '83 riots, the war broke out and intensified in the north. So 1987, May, Operation Liberation was the operation to recapture parts of Jaffna Peninsula from the Tamil Tigers. And in that process, the army came into our town, rounded up about 2,700 males between the age of 14 to roughly 40, who they consider to be members of fighting age, per se, able-bodied. And I was unfortunately one of those persons rounded up. I was 17 at the time, and I was sent to the south near Gaul, a place called Buza camp, where I was kept for more than 2 months, tortured, along with many others. And so that was 87, around July-ish. I was released miraculously. And at the time, my father decided that Sri Lanka is no longer a country for a Tamil boy like me, and decided that maybe he should send me away. And so in 88, he sent me to Canada, thinking Canada is that land of opportunity. Well, how right he was in his sentiment, making that decision to send me here. In fact, I landed in Toronto April 19th, 1988, so 37 years ago last week. And that's sort of my journey to Canada.
Perfect. And you know what? I can relate the same as well. I haven't gone through the camp how you did, but I was 17, sent to Toronto for the same reason as
Right.
you are here as well, 24 years back.
Okay.
But when you come here, how did you find the challenge in Canada, being an immigrant?
Right.
I'm sure I grew up in Colombo. I'm sure you grew up in Colombo as well. The language is not the barrier, but the culture and everything is a barrier as
Yeah.
well. How like I moved from Colombo to Whitby
Right.
in 2001. It was a
Right.
cultural shock.
Right.
I literally dressed up like this to go to school, and my cousins pulled me up on the side and say, "Where you think you're going?" But that's how you like. It's a big shock.
Right.
How did you find a change from a culture from Colombo to Toronto when you were 17 years old?
Yeah, I was 18 by the time I
18,
landed
okay.
here. 18 going into 19.
19, okay.
So
High school,
you're right.
High school times?
Yeah, so I wanted to study because by this time I haven't been inside of a school in 2 years.
Yeah.
So the primary reason for me to come here to continue my education. But you plan something and something else happens, and so 2 days after I landed, so I landed here on April 19th and the 21st. 2 days after, I got the news that my father was shot and killed. And that changed the entire plan. And so I had to figure out a way to keep my body and soul together. So
It's
had
not
to
easy.
work. Yeah, so I had to work. But in terms of culture, yeah, I mean, look, I spoke English not as fluent as I do today. I had no confidence at the age of 18. I was scared, especially after my father's death. I was depressed and angry. So I wasn't really adjusting to society that well.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah, I had a lot of anger issue, understandably so. I felt that world has done injustice to me, to my family, especially to my father, now that was dead. So I carried all that burden and anger, and lashing out on things that I shouldn't be lashing out on. But I was young, no guidance, new culture, scared. So put all that together, it was a miserable existence. The weather too, right?
Weather
I mean,
too.
it's
But
not.
at least it's springtime in April.
Yeah, but it still it felt cold, right? In fact, the day I landed, it was like almost 0 degrees, which I don't think I ever
Experience
experienced
that.
in my life. Now, if it's 0, I'm fine. But
You're happy.
back then, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I ended up getting a couple of jobs. I mean, I was studying for a while. I couldn't focus, and my mom was now alone in Sri Lanka after my father's death. So the trouble was still going on. So I needed to get her out of there. That means I need to get a job so I can support her and myself. So yeah, I got a job in a factory on the north side of Toronto called Concord area, just as north of Steeles, along Keels. There's a Keel Street. There's a small factory. I used to work there from morning to say about 5 p.m. shift, and then on the way somewhere change into some clothes where I can go and clean buildings downtown
So you're doing 2 jobs.
in one day. And then on the weekends, I worked as a security guard. So my shift will start midnight Friday, will end Saturday noon, go home, sleep, wake up, midnight Saturday, and then it finishes Sunday, sleep, wake up in the morning Monday, go to factory, change, go to buildings downtown, clean. So rinse and repeat over and over and over for at least a year, until I realized that maybe there's a better way to lead a life. And I was cleaning a building in downtown, the Scotiabank building, 44 King Street West. So if anybody know downtown really well, is Bay and King, right in the heart of Bay Street. We're cleaning this building, and I saw this office, was massive, like 3 times bigger than the apartment I was living in, or room I had. It's big, and nice couches, fridge, boardroom, and I thought I should aspire to this, and at least try. So a few days later, I was flipping through the Toronto Sun newspaper and saw an ad that said office help needed, $14K. I didn't know what K meant at the time. So I applied for the job. It's a long story how I got the job. For the interest of time, I'll leave the details, and it's all in the book. Yeah, I got the job as a mailroom clerk on a Bay Street, small, privately held investment company. And I was the 25th employee of the firm. I know that because the extension for the CEO was 200.
Yeah.
Mine was 225.
2 to 5. So it
And
goes
so
from there.
Yeah, everybody starts, they just add another number to the phone lines. Yeah, I was the lowest man on the totem pole per se. And that was 1989. So about a year after I started, I came to Canada. In fact, February 20th, 1989, just a little less than 10 months later, I landed in Canada. And I guess sometimes, luck does help if you work hard.
If you work hard. I think that's the key, right? Like,
Yeah.
luck's not going to come in your way without if you try.
Correct. But, I'll take luck over skill anytime.
Yeah.
And the company was small company at the time, about $200 million under management. And fast forward to 30, I guess, I retired in 2023. So you're looking 34 years later. I went from, as I said, mailroom to boardroom. Went from mailroom boy to executive officer to the vice chairman of the largest independent asset management company in Canada, running over $500 billion in assets. that's my story.
Impressive. Impressive. So let me ask you this, Roy. How did you help yourself compose from coming into Canada, find out in weeks later your father has shot, working 7 hours a day, like 7 days a week?
Yeah.
Did you have a support system?
Well, I had my uncle, maternal uncle here, but he was also new to the country, so I couldn't. I mean, he was very nice uncle, and he was very loving, supportive. I was living with him for a little bit, and then I also needed to go find my own way. So, yeah, no, I kind of left the uncle's home and ended up living with a whole bunch of people. And I still remember there were like 7 of us or something in that apartment. And some had day shifts, some had night shifts. So
you probably not even see each other.
Yeah, so basically it'd be like a mattress on the floor.
Yeah.
And on one side we'll say Roy, the other side would be the other guy's name.
So
we
they
just
flip it?
Flip the mattress and sleep on it. But yeah, I mean, listen, I always say empty stomach and broken heart taught me a lot of lessons. My father was a very influential person in my life. He has taught me a lot of life skills at a very young age. He used to tell me, listen, son, there are 2 types of problems in the world, yours and everybody else's. You have to fix yours. And another lesson I always remembered throughout my life and even today is that if you ask for sympathy, you'll get a lot of sympathies from people, but sympathy never solves an issue.
Very true.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm sure you've seen it in your life too.
100%.
There are always people come and sympathize. It's a nice thing to do. It's that's what society does.
That doesn't take you to the...
No, I remember when my father died, 37 years ago, people say what they always say, look us up if you need anything. We are here to help you. 37 years later, I don't even know where these people are. What I do know is that the indelible lessons my father had taught me that stuck with me even though he was gone. It also felt like he was always there advising me. I know it sounds cliche-ish, but also my goal was to, when he died, untimely death, unjust death, I thought if I did well enough in life, somehow I could make up for the life he should have had. So I ended up living for 2 people, for him and
for you.
and me. Part of me died when he died. The other part of me became a fighter, and that fighter never rested until I achieved my goal. And I believe that best revenge is living well. And I'm look back in my journey, and there are many things I've done wrong, like we all have.
We are not perfect.
Yeah, correct. But if I were to have a column of wrong things and right things, my right things are longer than the wrong things in terms of the column size.
Yeah.
So that's all you have to do in life. Just just do more right than wrong in your journey. I think you'll get there.
The reason I ask is because a lot of young adults, they're having a tough time processing, especially in this current world. That's why I want to get the advice from someone who has come a long way. It's not an easy thing to fight, like being kind of new to compared to the fight some people have to put in Canada,
Right.
the young adults.
Right.
This is like a big fight, like coming from a different country,
Right.
Losing the father, struggling to find a way to live.
Right.
And it's not easy. That's why I hope someone can get some valuable lesson from this, how to stay composed and stay focused and take the pivot your life.
Right. Right. I mean, look.
You could have broken down. You could have gone a completely other way around. You could have become addict to something, addiction issues,
Right.
to fight the battle.
Right.
Right? It's not an easy one to fight.
Yeah, and I thought if I failed, it's like killing my father again.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Because
that's the one he was in your fight. That
right.
was keeping.
He sent me here for the primary reason of making something of myself, leaving a legacy for him and me and the family, and all that rested on my shoulder at a very young age. And so I had to harden my heart and stay focused
And fight.
Fight. And like I said, look, I'm very open in the book about my anger issues, my PTSD. I treated people very badly, including then girlfriend and then wife. Um, but those things I can reflect back now, and I truly am sorry about the people I've hurt along the way. But I think I also was struggling with a lot of anxiety, mental anxiety, and it took a lot of therapy and to deal with my PTSD. And the PTSD is still there. I just know how to handle it.
You got better at it.
Yeah, I know how to manage it. And in fact, I think that in our community, there's a lot of that, mental anguish, PTSD, all these things are still present. In fact, that's why I now spend my time dealing with is helping causes that mental health issue related causes. I submitted Kilimanjaro for that reason to support that. My mother suffered through that immensely. In our community, it is there. Mental illness is a taboo in any community, especially in ours. And so I'm spending my life now
Helping.
being, an advocate for that type of causes.
I can relate that. I live with my uncle who's a psychiatrist.
Oh, okay.
And doing he has stories. Like it's not easy to fight it, and only thing we can do is help each other out to support.
Right.
And it's a great initiative. Thank you for doing that, Roy.
No worries.
So let's talk about your CI. So you started as a mailroom clerk with 14K. You figured out the K. When did you figure out the K? When you went for the interview?
It was just like I got the letter.
With the offer
a week
letter?
later, and I put the 3 zeros next to it.
Then you're like,
then when it all came in, thanks to 3 zeros.
Nice.
That's how much I didn't know. Speaking of culture shock, right?
Yeah, it's a year into the job.
I know,
right?
I know.
So that's the pivoting part of your career. Start working with CI.
Yeah.
So what I want to find out is I started working in the bank, and I grown up to senior management.
Right.
Then the struggle comes in.
Right.
Especially being an immigrant.
Right.
Trust me, the banks were great, like a great employee, but you also lose a confidence on it because you know what, the language has become a problem.
Correct.
How you overcome those challenges to
Right.
go up to the executive level, like to the vice chairman of the bank. Like it's not easy.
Yeah, I mean,
So this is probably something like a lot of people want to listen to this because a lot of people are here probably listen to this podcast.
Right. I think that the challenges you are highlighting are real. There are hurdles for people who look like us.
Yeah.
But there's also massive opportunities for people who look like us. I've said this to my son, that when you go out there in the real world, there are going to be terrible people that you have to deal with. But doesn't fundamentally stop you from achieving great things. Often what I find is people will blame others for their lack of progress. I'm not saying, again, there are racist people do racist things, but there are also amazing people who do amazing things. I was very young and got into this little company. That was the luck part. And the other part of the luck was I found 3 amazing mentors in the same company. I mean, if you found just one, that's a massive success. I found 3.
That's
Right.
That's really lucky.
Right. And I mentioned all 3 of them in the book. Robert McRae, he was a CEO who wrote checks out of his own bank account to send me to UFT. Then there was G. Raymond Chang. These 2 gentlemen are now, they passed away. Ray was himself an immigrant, came from Jamaica, Jamaican Chinese, and done well for himself in this asset management gig. And he was instrumental in helping with math homework and all that stuff. Then Bill Holland, who's still here on the planet and been my lifelong mentor. Well, that's the luck part. And the hard work part is relied on me. And
You had to prove yourself.
And I had to take full credit for that. Because I hate when people say, oh, you're lucky to meet these people. that just kind of brushing off my effort as
Yeah.
well, because I was very coachable. I think that's the thing that I tell people: be coachable, right?
100%.
And I think often people refuse to change and grow. They're stubborn in their ways, a chip on their shoulder about themselves. Look, I do have chip on my shoulder too.
I think we all at some point of life, right?
I say I have chip on both shoulders. That's why I'm well balanced.
Yeah.
Listen, when I say these things, some people think, "Oh, I'm being controversial." I'm being honest. Okay. I could have been probably still struggling through mailroom job to mailroom job, different firms, horizontally going instead of going vertically.
Correct.
And I decided that why can't I be that gentleman who came into the mailroom in a nice tie and beautiful Rolex watch and be successful? And I learned that I needed to somehow assimilate to society, to this nation, to the company. Assimilation doesn't mean you give up who you are. I'm proud Tamil by heritage, I always say. And I find young professionals refuse to assimilate and roll with the punches sometimes, And I've just kept bettering myself every day. Listen to these, people who are successful. Success leaves clues. I looked at people and saw whoever achieved what I wanted to achieve and just copied them. I made it my own and put my own spin on it.
So you kind of copy the same playbook, but you spin it in the
Yeah,
way.
you have to do it with your style and your substance, because you can't be fake and copy somebody else and become someone else in the process. And these are things that I'm saying, and I should have made this disclaimer even before we started. Look, this is how I did it. These are the things I put into play. Okay. But doesn't mean it's going to work out for everyone. We are all individuals. We are unique in a way. But there are things that you can get from it,
You can work mold it the way that how you want it to be molded.
Right. To improve is to change, I always say. If you don't change, you'll never improve life. Okay. Right. Change as a human, change as a father, change as a husband, a spouse, whatever. You have to look at your blind spots and try to do the best you can to fix them. And you'll always have blind spots. I just talked to my wife about all the things I'm wrong about, and she'll give you a list of things. I'm still in work in progress. And but you have to be showing humility to yourself to say that when you're wrong, admit it.
Yep.
Right? So I have, in the company, I came getting close to getting fired a few times because I was just not getting it. And then somebody's got to take me aside and have a conversation. And in fact, I resigned from the company once and left and finished my school. And then one thing led to another. I got hired back again by them. And this time, tour duty number 2, and I got it. I figured it out. And I took the chances. I got into this sales distribution game at CI. And at that time, I was the only person of color on that squad. And most of the people who were there, tall, good-looking guys, blue eyes, they are, parents have cottages, chalets, and part of membership, private golf clubs. And I had none of that work, right? Yeah. So I was an unlikely candidate to get in there, to have a role, and actually to be able to win in that game, in that environment. And all because I had good mentors who taught me along the way. And I also took a lot of chances.
Mm-hmm.
Company went public on June 20th, 1994. I was a very young guy, and I decided that I'm going to go get a loan, borrow money from family and friends. And I remember borrowing money from a loan shark here in Toronto, paying like 10% interest monthly, and put everything into this one stock when it went public. And even the CEO was shocked that a guy who barely made any money
Came up with the investment.
bought the stock. And on April 1st this year, it's almost like this podcast meant to be. It's a lot of
April.
anniversary month
April.
here. So April 1st of this year, I finally exited the entire position without not ever selling one single stock from 1994.
Wow. That's
So
31 years.
31 years I held the stock, and it became number 2 best performing stock on TSX for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And the company went through some trouble. You know, those things happen. You can always be going up.
Yeah.
And I never, everybody asked me this, like, why did you buy stock? Why did you keep buying stock? Every time I got any kind of company bonus, I just threw it in the stock
Mm-hmm.
or options. I just lived on whatever the income I got from the company, but never
Live on
anything more than that. So I became a fairly good shareholder of the company.
Mm-hmm.
And I also believe that you have to have skin in the game. Because if you have ownership, then you think like an owner. I never thought I was an employee.
Where you have a
Yeah, and I say this, nobody washes a rental car,
correct.
right? Have you ever taken a rental car to wash? So if you owned your car, then you keep it clean.
Yeah.
So I sort of had that mentality where
That's
I wanted
actually a very good point.
Yeah, I wanted to own the shares, and so these are the things that I keep repeating to people. Yes, to answer your question, it is harder sometimes for people with this, people of color or whatever, but the world has changed a lot. The barriers to entry has been lowered.
Compared to when you started.
Yeah,
Significantly.
and I think you owe it to yourself as well to understand the game, right? You cannot fight, just be just some kind of a revolutionary in a corporation.
Correct.
Corporations are there for profit. They're
It's
not
a business.
Yeah, they're not. Their biggest focus is shareholders
Mm-hmm.
and earnings every quarter. If you're part of that solution and adding to that,
You're good.
then you're going to get noticed. But if you're subtracting from that cause,
Or challenging the cost.
yeah, and you're never going to get the thing. So, yeah, so I think that it goes both ways. The company's got to give opportunities to, almost like a colorblind opportunity. It's a naive thing to say probably, but at the same time, you have responsibility to be a good corporate citizen and go along with the play.
Absolutely.
And I've done that without compromising your ethics and who you are as a person. And I don't think I ever done that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, would be my long-winded answer for that question. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I think the next question that leads into is, I'm sure you had a challenge. You had colleagues who come from a high privilege, I
Yeah.
would say.
Yeah.
And as an immigrant, you have to work so hard to prove
Right.
yourself, and you probably have a lot of thing on your shoulder to prove yourself as well. How do you life your family life and work life? How do you find the balance?
I didn't. That's the honest answer. And I say that because I was a workaholic. I wanted to be very good at what I did. So my job was really raising capital
Mm-hmm.
around
World.
Canada, outside of Canada. I ran a team at one point, about 200 people reported to me directly or indirectly. My team needed to go raise $20 billion a year minimum to stay flat, just to stay flat.
That's no growth.
No growth, just to stay flat. And so that's $5 billion a quarter.
Yep.
That's
a big number.
That's a very big number.
Yeah.
Billion and change a month. And so you break it down to the day.
Yeah.
So, our team has to bring in about $150 million a day. A day.
To stay flat.
Stay flat. So I was running a life that is constantly on the go. I was taking about 120 flights a year. So 3 a week-ish.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think my wife and I made a decision that we're going to do this, and she's going to be fully supportive of this.
Mm-hmm.
I missed many anniversaries, birthdays, soccer games, all that. Do I regret any of that? No, because it afforded us the life that we wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And my son and I have a very good relationship still,
Mm-hmm.
even though I was pretty absent for the most part. But we managed to build a good bond, and I was there for when he really needed me, and I wasn't there every day, but I was there when he needed me.
Mm-hmm.
So life takes sacrifices,
Absolutely.
right? And in your business, I'm sure you have to do the same thing. And so it is important to have a supportive
Partner.
spouse
Yeah.
or husband.
Yeah.
Depends on which way it goes. And so we had look. Life doesn't. It's not always cotton candy and jelly beans.
Yeah.
I mean, there are struggles and fights, and just like any couples will go through. But we were fortunate enough to get through the stormy past and to the other side of it.
Correct.
And this is one of the reasons I decided to leave the business, and at a very young age, because I believe in time wealth.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing you can't replace.
100%.
You can replace wealth, meaning money, if you lose it. Once you lose time, you can't gain it back.
You cannot go back.
So,
There's no way to go back.
right. And the other reason is, very quickly, is that average Tamil man lives to be about 72 years old. That's average,
Mm-hmm.
right? So in Canada, you're asked to work till 67.
So you're 5 years.
You have 5 years after retirement for an average man.
Yeah.
Now, the last 5 years of your life is not that productive.
Yeah.
So I thought, you mean to tell me that I'm going to leave the business at 67, and then I get to enjoy life for another 5 years? Hopefully, I'll be physically okay.
Yeah,
Until you're okay.
hopefully.
Yeah. So I just
There's no
wanted
guarantee
to,
on that either.
Yeah, I just wanted to do things differently, because society is designed by actuarial scientists, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because life is about 3/3,
Yeah.
right? First 1/3 is the 25 years. The
Yeah.
second 1/3 takes you to 50.
Yeah.
The
That's
last 1/3 takes you to 75.
Yeah.
So each 1/3 has a different thing you need to do. First 1/3, you learn. Second 1/3, you earn. The last 1/3, you return. So I'm at the return part of my life, where I want to give back to the society, especially to this country, for giving me an opportunity to come here, first of all, to save my life, to then have a life,
Absolutely.
and to improve, not just me, you, thousands of people
Thousands
like
of people.
ourselves,
Yeah.
who have come to this nation, that opened its arm for people like us, and gave us fairness for the most part. Is this country perfect? No.
No, none of them are perfect.
It's 1,000 times better than what you and I left behind.
Exactly.
So, to me, now the focus is giving back to Canada at large, to society here, until I'm not able to.
I agree with 100%.
Right.
Even when we go to school back home, we travel. My dad was like,
Yeah.
he didn't want it to move.
Right.
He wanted to stay and serve, That's one of the reasons he ended up in staying there and he
Right.
sent us over. There's no guarantee we'll be coming back home safe.
Right. Right.
There's a bombing going on. There's a lot of things happening. So we are so fortunate to be here
Right.
to the point. Like we owe so much to this country.
I think we should every person who came here as an immigrant should make themselves a promise and say, I want to leave this place better than I found it.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever that is, right? And I tell a lot of young people who are coming up the ranks behind us that fix yourself first before you can fix the world.
Mm-hmm.
Get
But when you
your-
fix yourself, the world get fixed as well, right?
Right. Get your affairs in order. Get to a level in life where you can actually help others. It's just like flying. The pilots say when in the unlikely event of emergency, put your mask on first before assisting the
Other
person
people.
next to you,
Yeah.
right? And I believe that sometimes people focus on it's okay to be idealistic when you're young. I was once that. But the reality is there are only 3 things you can give back to society: time, money, wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
Very unlikely you'll have these 3 things when you're young.
Yeah.
Time, no, because you're trying to build a life.
Money, no.
Money,
Maybe.
maybe.
It depends on how you commit yourself.
But wisdom, no.
That
At
you got to
least-
be at the later
yeah,
age.
right. I mean, I'm more mature now than I was at 35,
100%.
and then I was at 25. So I have all 3, I like to think: a little bit of money, time for sure, and some experience that I can give back to different cohorts in the society, right?
Okay.
Money to those who need help in terms of mental illness or whatever.
Yeah.
Wisdom or experience to those who I can mentor.
Yeah.
And then time with that. And so I think if everybody were to sort of focus in that way, I would think that there'll be less problems in the world. I think people try to do a reverse order. And then, because I'll tell you, like, I was, not too long ago, I told someone I was 20 years old. And I'm looking at it now, I'm like knocking on 60.
I know.
And
Time flies, eh?
It's just, boom, it goes. So my advice is you are given a toolbox and a set of tools as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's good at something.
Mm-hmm.
And then take that tool and just apply it, right? How many heartbeat you got? Nobody knows.
Yeah.
So take every heartbeat as a big deal and go for it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really that type of tenacity and foresight. The earlier you get, better it is.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I learned that in my early 20s, but it took me early 30s to readjust and reset myself. And so really the last 20 years-ish, I've been hard.
Yeah. Roy, what would you advise? I think a lot of audience who's probably watching this is like similar to my age or a little bit younger, professionals trying to get their career built up, move up in their life, trying to figure out their life, how you were trying to reset in
Right.
your 30s.
Yeah.
What will be your advice for the audience? Like, what would one thing you would tell them, focus on one thing that regardless whatever happens?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it is to me, again, I would say what I'm about to say doesn't mean that it's going to apply to everybody. I think use the pain, whatever your pain you have in life, as a fuel for the furnace of your ambition. Don't let the pain slow down your progress, and just be relentless in your pursuit,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that is, right? Because as I said, personally, when my father died, I felt like I wanted to go and end my life too, seriously.
Mm-hmm.
But what would be the point of that? And so taking a route where I thought I should try to aspire to something
Do
where
something different.
he would be proud
Mm-hmm.
had been alive. And that journey was very painful,
Mm-hmm.
but you had to stay focused. And I was just be laser focused on anything you do, and pay respect to the craft, whatever that is. And I was in sales. I had an accent and certain words. Anything that started with volatility would be volatility,
Yeah.
because the way we
Yeah.
say V and W. So I would, in presentations, I would say market swings instead of volatility,
Yeah.
right? Every Sunday night, I would sit there in front of a mirror, practice every single meeting that I was going to do the following week. And I worked every Sunday. I always worked when my competition was sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
Even today, I do a couple hours of doing something.
We're here on a Sunday.
Right. And practicing your craft is important.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I would certainly encourage people to do, learn to communicate, written and verbal.
Mm-hmm.
Because you could have the best idea in the world. If you don't know how to convince a group of people of your ideas, you have no idea.
Yeah.
So for me to go raise capital for a guy who came from a different part of the world with no background in this business, to come here, it took communication. I spent a lot of money and time getting better at communicating. And I'm not saying I'm best at it, 1,000 times better than I used to be. And communication is like the laws of physics. It applies everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so that, and then discipline. Discipline is better than motivation. Motivation is a feeling, so it's fickle. It's an emotion.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're motivated to go for a run today, you won't go. You need to have discipline to just get up and get into your gear and to go outside and run. Mm-hmm. So get discipline as part of your life. Have structure. I used to wake up at 4:30 for 25 plus years. First thing, I hit the gym every morning. Then read the paper, get the news. By 7 o'clock, I'm in the office. My competition is just getting me out of bed, When I say competition, not even competition outside, internally.
Internally. In your
Because
office.
I'm competing with people in the company for the job. So the last part is differentiation. If there's a job opening at CI or any other place, there are 50, 60 people applying for the same one role.
Yeah.
Why you? How do you differentiate yourself from the crowd? I mean, you can differentiate yourself for the wrong reason. You could be the drunkest person in the room every single
You
time.
don't want that to be.
That's not the differentiation I'm talking about. Differentiating yourself to stand out positively. So animals blend in to environment to survive. Humans need to stand out to be noticed. So find a way to differentiate yourself. When I was raising capital, one of the reasons I was successful is I differentiated my pitch. I said things differently. I made an impression on people. I never sold a product. I sold the outcome.
Mm-hmm. Solution.
Yeah. People always try to sell a product. And we were able to raise, I don't know how many billions we raised over the years, very successfully. And so, yeah, differentiation, communication, and then just getting better at your craft. Ongoing.
And
just
discipline.
keep getting better. Like, I used to try to get a pitch done in 7 minutes. Right. And because I learned.
How long that took you to get in this?
Oh, years
Yes.
to get there, because a lot of people talk by not saying anything at all.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So speak with purpose. And 7 minutes, because humans can apparently only pay attention for about 7 minutes.
Yeah.
Then they just kind of tune out.
That's back then. Probably 7 seconds now.
Probably.
Based on TikToks.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because I know that the videos has to be under 1 minute.
1 minute.
Before you can get any trending on it,
Yeah.
right? So.
And the communication, so any piece of advice, like where you can go and master the piece.
I mean, there are a lot of, people out there, coaches. Like, I still have a coach that I go talk to or get trained on. It's because like I'm on a different thing I'm trying to do. I'm trying to be a keynote speaker. So I'm trying to do how to captivate the audience without looking at any notes, right? And no props, just talking. And this gentleman I hired, he works with major politicians and you know actors and things like that. But there are like Toastmasters and Dale Carnegie. That's what I took when I was a young guy. And yeah, it's and body language.
That's huge.
The majority of your communication is nonverbal, right? So look the part, dress the part, act the part, and people don't do business with anyone until they buy into the person.
So you are the personal brand.
Yeah. If they trust you, if they like you, then you have them for life. So your relationship has to be not transactional with your clients, it has to be transformational.
That's the key.
Yeah, when you have that, even if your company's screwed up, whether it's administratively or whether performance-wise, they give you a longer runway to fix it if they like you. In fact, my clients became my friends, and I have these friendships for 30 years now across Canada because they were clients first. Yeah. And the other thing I always say is that your client will become a friend first before your friend become a client.
100%.
Right? So
we can talk about it all day.
Yeah, look, I don't want to ramble on, but that's what I would do. Like, definitely pay attention to, like, I help a lot of young aspiring professionals. Most of them are sort of in the vicinity of Southeast Asia, so India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh kind of people, and our people, our young guys and gals. The hard skill is there, like smart, get it, understand it.
The soft skill.
Soft skill. You got to get, how to hang, how to
package them properly.
Yeah, how to, like even I had to go learn at one point how to properly eat at a table. Right? Etiquette.
Yeah.
Right? Because people are watching you. Yeah. And I didn't know which side is my water, which side is my bread when you're sitting at a table. So I went to a course and I learned BMW. You know what that is?
No.
Bread, main, water.
Water, BMW.
So then I never forgot that.
Yeah.
Right? So,
it's funny, like actually I went to the course like that too when I was in university. They actually had a course how to sit down on a proper meal. But keep in mind, it's a culture, right? Like we don't come from a culture where we have bread and water and meal. Right. What made you to get the message out? Like what motivates you to work on the book?
Yeah. So around mid-30s, I thought everybody I talked to, my clients mostly, they know the story. And like, man, you got to write this book. But I didn't think that anybody wants to listen to a 35-year-old.
Yeah.
I wanted to wait for a time where I felt that I can actually meaningfully write something that people will absorb whatever I'm saying.
The wisdom is there too now, right?
Correct. I like to think that. So fast forward to 2021, COVID, and I wasn't traveling. I wasn't doing dinners. Like I used to only eat at home Friday night, Saturday night, and maybe Sunday night, because sometimes I fly out Sunday. So 2 meals only at home, and on lunch, Saturday lunch. Every meal was outside. So every night I have a dinner, client dinner. I had it for like years. And it's shocking that I actually stayed in shape throughout that.
That was my next question is going to be, how did you, that's why you got a gym in the morning.
Yeah, I hit the gym in the morning, and I have other disciplines, like I would eat very
light,
thoughtful, and I'll skip lunches usually, and just have one meal. I think we overeat. You don't need 3 meals. Nobody needs 3 meals. The first meal is really cereal companies' scam. Breakfast is not the most important meal. Lunch is probably. Anyways, yeah. So I thought I have a bunch of time
Yeah.
at night, and I started writing it. But it wasn't the reason. The reason for writing is I always felt our story, our collective story, wasn't told properly to the world. Definitely not to outside of our
Community.
right? And
So everyone in the community know the story, not in the
yeah,
mainstream.
and I read or seen books that was written on our issue. They're more like a policy book, like people talk about, oh, on April this day, 10,000 people died in this city because
Yeah.
this happened. Those things are good to document too. I'm not saying no, but those are good for like a UN policymaker or a governmental agency to go, what actually transpired in Sri Lanka? These are the facts and things like that. But people generally like human stories. Doesn't matter you're white, brown, yellow, black, whatever the color yours is, the core of it,
Yeah.
there's some humanity in people. Fathers, mothers, So we all have that beat. So I wanted to tell a story through a lens of one person, in this case is me. A humane story, a story of hope and survival, not just suffering and torture. And what can happen to humans if you're giving them freedom and choice and agency, where people take responsibility for their actions, and what that can result in. That's just one example.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
looking at you, another example. There are many like that. I'm not special in this,
Yeah.
but I want to tell this story to outside world. That was one reason. The other is our next generation of kids coming up the ranks. Many of them don't know the story because, quite frankly, the parents came, they put their head in the work, as they should,
Yeah.
and they didn't have time to tell. So I needed to have a
Go to the second
documented
generation.
history of a story of someone. And in fact, young people who have read it said, "Oh, my dad told me he had a similar thing." And so it's again, it's a. I've had people tell me, "Your story is similar but different."
Yeah.
Right? Everybody can resonate with the story. And the third, and probably a selfish reason, is at least the worst case scenario, I want to document the story for my family. Right? And
For your father.
Yeah. So I want to do that. So I started it like, okay, let's just write it. And it was, in fact, again, April.
April is
a lot of anniversary here. I was Easter Sunday,
2020.
yeah, 2021.
Oh, 2020.
I started writing, and I never stopped for 60 days. I stopped after 95,000 words written, and then I thought this book shouldn't be just self-published. This should be published mainstream with the best publisher in the country, in the world, Penguin Random House. The one thing is when I set goals that are kind of out there,
Yeah.
and just go for it. Like what was a line someone said? I don't know who said it, but if your dreams are not letting you sleep if your dreams are letting you sleep at night, they're not big enough.
Yeah.
And so I want to do that, and then guess what? With a lot of negotiation, finagling, and presentation, and I had to go convince the board, Penguin, and I sort of convinced them that this book should be published by them.
Amazing.
And I get, even today, yesterday, I got a note from someone from New Zealand. A gentleman said that he was flying from somewhere, UK to New Zealand or something like that, and he saw this book and he wanted to read it. And his connection was to cricket, to Sri Lanka, because he's a cricket fanatic. And then he learned so much. He sent me a nice note saying, "Thanks for writing it. Now I understand the full story." There are many like that. And so even the Sinhalese population from Sri Lanka who have said, "Thank you for writing it. Now I get the full picture." So it served a lot of purpose.
Yeah.
And also the other is sort of cathartic. You open up your life and everything that bottled in for 30 plus years, and then let it out.
Yeah.
And I feel like that weight has been dropped, and I'm happy that book was well received, became a #1 bestseller immediately, and then got a Bronze Award in the U.S. and Axiom Award. And the audiobook became the best audiobook, one of the best audiobooks in 2023. So it ticked a lot of boxes, which I didn't envision at the time, but it's a nice icing on the cake.
Amazing. So now, if someone want to learn, mentor, how can they reach out to you?
Well, I have a website called royratnavel.com.
Yeah.
Or just search my name and you'll get an email there. Send me an email, and I'm always available to help. Not necessarily money. Writing a check is the easiest thing to do. You know, giving money is not that difficult. Giving time is hard.
Absolutely.
And so I'm willing to give the time, and I really do mean that. I think that our community has done so well in one generation. That's 30 years. And I can only imagine
what's the future's going to look like.
Yeah, as long as, people who have come here this far, like yourself and many like you, now look back and start giving to the next generation guidance.
Transformational of knowledge and
Right. And
skill sets.
100%. And reach out to me and I'll do my best. And I can guarantee you that you'll be happy with all of my advice, but...
would execute it.
Yeah. But also, listen, mentoring has to be organic, and you got to have a thick skin to get mentored.
You should be coachable, as you say.
Yeah. I mean, I got smacked around by Bill so many times you won't believe. Even these days, my wife said to me, "You are not afraid of anyone." Except by this gentleman.
Bill.
I think it's a healthy respect, I should say. It's not afraid. It's not, he's going to physically dominate me. And just saying, healthy respect for what he has done in his life, and knowing that whatever he's saying is for my betterment.
Absolutely.
And he has been wrong in his advice, too. I tell him that. But you need to have someone like that in your life.
To hold you accountable.
For everything, right? And so I was fortunate to had met this gentleman when I was 20. He was 30.
Mm-hmm.
I was 30,
years back.
6 years ago.
Yeah.
And we meet once a month and chat. And, he has been part of the journey. He's mentioned generously in the book for what he has done to me. And, I repeat this: be coachable. It's the hardest thing for people to do, to receive the information and try to process that. Everybody takes everything, not everybody. Some people take it very personally. They think they're on a defensive mode right away, and you can't help a person who's always defensive.
Absolutely.
And so if you ever happen to reach out to me, whoever you are listening, I'm going to be blunt, and I'm going to tell you where you need to improve. And I also would say bluntly that my advice are not always the right advice. So take it with a grain of salt.
Absolutely. Anything you want to mention, Roy?
I think, now that I am at what I call the back nine of my life in golf terms, you are given one shot at this game, and know your priorities, right? And do it in the order of learning, earning, and then returning. And not to sound cliches, money is important. Trust me.
Yeah.
But money isn't everything. At some point, get off the ride. Mm-hmm. When you say, you know what, I think I have enough money to live to be 100.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you don't want to outlive the money either, right? So it's a very hard thing to balance. Being young and poor is kind of fun. Being old and poor is not fun.
Not fun, absolutely.
But if your life becomes sort of a spreadsheetish, like you're tracking your life on a spreadsheet, then it's a miserable life. And then finally, I would say, focus on your fitness, finance, family, and if you have a faith, focus on that too. Everything else is just noise and distraction. And this not to sound defeatist, this is to be pragmatic. You need to be ruthlessly pragmatic in life. Get your fitness in order. Pay attention to your family, your finances, and friends if you have good ones. And just be happy that way. If you think about every injustice in the world, trust me, world is a horrible place. Human history is a horror show.
Mm-hmm.
We've been through that in Sri Lanka.
Absolutely.
You can't change that. You can't fix that. All you can do is in life is control how you respond to life.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And you are in charge of the input.
Mm-hmm.
You can't control the output, right? You're in charge of the input. And the output may not be the one you desired, but at least you know you control the input.
Control it.
But then ask yourself, if you're not getting the right output, go to the mirror and ask yourself, what could I have done differently to change the outcome? Then change the input. Because you can't just do the same thing over and over and expect a different results. That's what I would say.
Perfect. Roy, it's been a pleasure having you, and really appreciate your time on a Sunday being here.
It's a beautiful day.
Thank you. And I'm sure this is going to be so much valuable information. How I resonate with people like me at my age,
right,
who's trying to figure out what the next step in their career, like how do I do, what do I need to focus to get my goal or my dream. I think this is going to get through a lot of people's mind, head, and heart as well.
Well, I mean, listen, I'm glad that at least some people will find it useful and some people may not find it useful, and that's fine. Yeah. And
that's good.
The advice are not for everybody.
Absolutely.
And thank you for having
Once
me.
again, not everyone is coachable.
Right. And thank you for having me.
Thank you.
And hopefully we will meet up at some and chat soon.
Perfect. Thank you, Roy.
Okay.